Welcome back everyone, got this trek in today. Typical teenager's bike, it's had a hard life, it's fair to say. Rear derailleur's hanging off, tyres are gone, cables are shot, grips are worn. Yeah, it's got issues, but nothing we can't sort out. This is a typical sort of day-to-day bread and butter service for myself, so I thought I'd film this for you just to show you the typical stuff that comes through it. It's not all sort of high-end exotica mountain bike and road bikes. We do the normal stuff as well, so let's crack on with this one. So yeah, typical teenager's bike. This is had an accident, it's fair to say. I think the hanger looks straight. So obviously we're putting a new rear mech on it. It's smashed it in half here. We're putting a new chain on it, new cassette on it, all new cables on it, new tyres on it. I saw this rim tape out that's split, fell out. New grips on it. I can't leave it like this. It's dangerous. Again, new cables, new gear cables, new brake cables, as I say, and just clean her up. So first of all, let's get this chain off. So I'd expect this service to take something around about 80-90 minutes, really, all in. Change all these bits and pieces. It's not the sort of thing where we're going to be ultrasonic cleaning and everything. It's really get it back on the road, get it serviceable, make sure your brakes and gears work, and make sure it's safe kind of service. You'll obviously get a quick wipe down while we're here, but you know, it's good enough for who it's for, as they say. So let's get cracking. A busy workshop today, so get this rear mech off, what's left of it, 9mm. We'll check the hanger alignment obviously while we're here, because that's potentially why it's in there, but I think it looks okay, but we'll check it. That derailleur is very loose there. Right, that's off. Cable's off. Right, this hanger is bent, so I'm just going to straighten that now first of all. Do need to check the wheels reasonably straight. Just hold your Allen key on there. From there to there. It's on a disc, so it doesn't make a huge difference, but the reason we need to make sure it's straight is because when we are straightening the derailleur hanger, you need to use a straight rim. Otherwise you can use the tyre valve itself, but what I'll do is I'll get this out through the wheel and then we'll straighten the hanger. That's that out. Let's get this in the truing jig. It's not horrendous, so we'll just straighten this up. So we got one there, tighten that one. Tighten that one. That one gone, one here. You can use a combination of tightening or loosening on this side. These are pretty loose though, so we've got enough. If you start tightening these and they're super duper tight, obviously you can loosen these off to get the same effect. I'll say it is on a disc anyway, so we're not looking at sort of V-brakes, rim brakes where you've got to get it absolutely perfect. Right, let's get it straight. Alright, so it's pretty straight now. Let's just check the spokes, make sure there's nothing obviously loose. Give them a good squeeze as pairs. Not bad. It's only a very cheap wheel, so that's straight enough. Let's get this back in now, and we'll straighten this derailleur hanger. So with the hanger, this is our AliExpress 2 hanger gauge. Coming up for 4 years old now. It's still good as new. Did a video on comparison of this compared to more premium tools, as you've probably seen. And guess what? This is absolutely perfect for almost everybody. Well, everybody. And if you can see, this is miles out. This O-ring sets here to the rim, and then we swing this down to the bottom of the wheel, and it should meet as an equal position. It's definitely not going to. Right, so we swing that down, line it up with the wheel. So we've got about a 2-inch gap here. That needs to be a 3mm gap between that and that. So we're a little bit out. So let's give it a pull, see what happens. You'll get away with 1 or 2 straightenings on this normally before the hanger gives up the ghost, but this is a pretty strong one by the feel of it. Good. Right. Set that to the bottom one now and go back up to the top. Back up here. Look at that. 2mm. It's almost like I've done this before. Right, we're good there. Let's just check left to right as well. Left to right again, it should be 3mm. We're a couple of millimeters out here, so we're just going to give it a twist in this plane here. Tiny bit. Right, we're not far off there. Let's check the other side. Perfect. Oh, that's fine. Probably should oil this tool at some point now. Obviously derailleur hangers are a replaceable part. They're designed to snap in an accident or if your derailleur goes in the spokes. But normally you'll get at least 1 straightening out of this. This is a very solid one. Some of them are made of pretty much chocolate and they'll just come straight off in your hand, but this felt very solid. If it does bend again, obviously it can be work hardened now and you would need to replace it at that point, but we're good to go on this one for now. Right, I've got some play in this rear wheel bearing as well. We are taking the cassette off anyway, so we can have a look at that while it's out of the bike. So let's get the wheel back out. This crank's missing its plastic cap, so we'll just whack a new one in there. Definitely not essential, just a cosmetic thing. It's a lot better. Bottom brackets are a little bit grumbly, but the customer trying to keep the cost down on this, so there is no playing in it at the moment. Like I say, it's a teenager's bike, so we're not out of perfection on this one. We're getting it roadworthy and safe again. We are changing the gear cables, because I say these are all pretty corroded, not very good. Disconnect this while we're here. Yeah, and this brake cable's coming out as well. Just cut this end cap off. Take the rest of the cables from out the frames. These clips on here, these plastic clips just pop out. Replace them with cable ties if you want, not a problem. These tend to fall off or snap anyway, so cable ties really is probably better than these. I'm surprised it's still got these fitted. Right, let's just get all this out. This front one's been cable tied on already, so cut this off. Drop this wheel out and sort this tube out. We're going to put new tyres on here anyway, so that'll sort that out. Cable operated disc brakes, they're pretty diabolical, to be fair. I mean, personally I prefer a good set of V-brakes over a set of cable operated disc brakes, but that's what the bike industry think people want. So let's get them working. Don't expect miracles because they're pretty crap. So that's all the cables disconnected now. Let's get these out of the shifters, etc. We are going to replace these housings, but just use the old ones just to cut for length, so just mark which is which, because you're just going to end up with a pile in a minute of outers that all look the same. So pretty obvious on this one because it's a full housing, so sometimes they come in many little bits. Get this gear cable out. We need to take this cover off here first. Two little screws. There's a massive fly buzzing around the workshop, if you can hear it. Got the door open so you can probably hear the birds tweeting outside. Do live in the countryside, so it's quite nice. Right, there we go. There's normally a spider's nest in here. And just flick this out. Can be a bit tight sometimes. There we go. What I prefer to do is cut this piece off here rather than pulling all the corrosion through the shifter. Just pull a small piece out. So this is the 3 pieces of housing for the front derailleur, so we'll keep that so we can measure it for size. They've seen better days. While we're in here, just get some lubricant in here as well. Just TF2 this is. Just operate that lever. Right, it's refusing to shift back down, so we give it a good flush. Don't want to go down there. Let's do the cable back in there. Right, we're literally just going to pull this through here, around here, back into where you've just got it out from. And now we can operate this trigger while I'm pulling this cable, and it should release that lever. So we'll just work this lube into it now, basically. Still pretty sticky. There's a spring down here that's come off its housing. That's the problem. So the reason that's not working properly is this spring here has popped out where it should be. It should be sitting up here in this groove. So just pop that back up there. That's where that lives. Now if we try it now. Perfect. Good. Easy fix. Good. Same on this one. Let's just make sure it works before we take the cover off. Yep. I do see a lot of kids' bikes and they're normally in pretty sorry state of repair. So you can see on this one, that's where that spring lives on there, so it just fell out on the other side. That cable came out much easier than the other one. So just cut this off and pull it out there, because otherwise you're just pulling all the corrosion from this cable all the way through the shifter, so don't do that. This barrel adjuster's bent. We need that. So we're going to try and get this working a bit better. Just put an Allen key in there and we're going to try and straighten that best we can. See if we can get it to start threading in again. Like that. It's working. Yep, that's working fine now. Screw it all the way in, then out of turn, so you've got some adjustment on the derailleur. Get this brake cable out now. Everything's starting to seize on this one. So just line up your slots there. There's a slot there, and then there's a slot on the front of the lever, and then it'll just come out like that. And then just unhook it. That's that done. Bit of lube in this one while we're here. Next we get these crusty old grips off. Should be a 3mm in here somewhere. Okay, 2.5mm on this one. Normally 3. Like that. Let's get this front one out as well. So that's all the bits we're taking off this. So all the cables are off, derailleur is obviously off, hanger straightened. And we're going to do a quick clean now, and then we'll start to work on the wheels, putting the derailleur on, recable it, and we're about done. Give it a quick clean. I still get so many people commenting in the comments, unsurprisingly, about the state of people's bikes, that they're bringing them in covered in mud and dust and road grime. Honestly, I honestly don't care. Unless they're absolutely disgusting and covered in stuff that you don't want to be covered in. It don't bother me, honestly. It's all part of the job. Yeah, I could charge cleaning sort of service, but I'm not that kind of guy. I just crack on with it. It don't really matter. So obviously there is a limit, and I've got a video planned for somebody's going to bring one in one day that's just absolutely ridiculously disgusting. I've got a little video planned for that, so I'm kind of waiting for a victim like that, really. But this is just normal road grime for a kid's bike. You're not expecting them to take it in the house and polish it and ceramic coat it every night. It's just, you know, it is what it is. It's a nice chain suck down here. Jeez. The whole point of cleaning a bike like this really by hand is you can inspect it for damage. So I'm literally touching sort of every millimetre of the frame here, so if there's any obvious damage or cracks or anything, you would identify it then. There's a plastic cover that's falling off. We're not doing anything with that. These are genuine nuke-proof cranks apparently. Okay, that looks a bit better. Did notice these bolt cage bolts are loose, so I'll just nip those up. Now I can start putting some new bits on, so we'll recable it, put some new grips on it, sort the tyres out, put them back together, put the new derailleur on, and yeah, be about done. Let's get some new grips on. These are ZTTOs. So I'm just eating a Kit Kat. Let's get these on, quite nice. Did a video on already these grips. It's my worst performing videos. I don't know why, it's so good. So just make sure you've got enough room for this, because that's going to overhang there. So we're just going to need to move these in temporarily. So this is a pretty low budget repair. The customers umming and ahhing about tyres and stuff, so we are trying to keep it as low as possible. So hence we're not putting new nuke-proof grips on, we're putting AliExpress grips on. Well, it's fine. Okay. This is a 3mm. They're normally 3mm. I don't know why that one was 2.5. Don't go crazy. Tight enough just to stop it spinning around like that. Done. Tight. Too tight. Just make sure your logos are lined up. Makes absolutely no difference, but let's make some effort. See how tight I'm doing that, not one finger. The amount of things that I see these people have rounded these out, they've just gone crazy with them. Right, let's put this back to where it should be. Again, not too tight. When you're tightening brake levers, you don't go crazy tight with these, especially on obviously not a carbon bar, but don't go crazy tight. The idea of brake levers really is they want to be tight enough to not move in normal operation, but if you do have an accident, you want it to spin around the bar like this, otherwise you're just going to snap your brake lever off. So don't go crazy with them. They do need to be able to move under an accident sort of scenario, but obviously not under normal use. So again, you can see how tight I'm doing that, not particularly. There's a torque setting for these, like 5-6 Newton meters, but that ain't going anywhere. And again, just tighten this up. We'll make sure these are level when the bike's on the ground, but they look pretty close to where they are at the moment. I think what we'll do next is these wheels. So obviously we've got 2 new tyres to go on. And I say I'm just going to change the cassette on there, because we are putting a new chain on it. It's not worth it. It's £15 for a cassette, so we're putting that on at the same time and get these tyres off. So let's just crack on with that. I need to get this cassette off anyway, because there's a problem with this axle. The lock nut's loose, I think. Get these tyres off first though. Cost for this, all in with parts and labour, is coming in around about 150 UK pounds, so not too bad. Cheaper than a new bike. Right, break the bead on this one. I'm pretty sure we could just rip this off. This rim tape's knackered as well, so I'm changing both of them. Ready? You don't need tyre levers on a mountain bike. You can literally just pull them straight off. Schrader valve on this one, pressed on the back one. Interesting. Again, that's off. So we'll tie this rim tape up first. I've got some ZTTO tapes that I'll just drop on one piece. These come from AliExpress, pair of rim tapes. I really like these. Keep a lot of these in stock. They're just a one-piece nylon. maybe 9, I don't know, 26 inch, so that'll just drop straight into this rim. So just find your spoke hole, drop a screwdriver through it. This is a non-JIS screwdriver, so it's about the only use you can make of it. And so if you find a screwdriver, get JIS. Is that fitted? Easy. Obviously you can't use these for tubeless, but if you're using inner tubes, these are brilliant. They're TTO. You don't need to start shopping on AliExpress, honestly. You get such bargains on there. I've done so many videos on AliExpress kit now. I think a lot of people do use it now, but some people are a bit scared of it. No different to shopping on Amazon in my opinion. It just takes a couple of weeks instead of a day or two. If you get a big enough order and you're prepared to wait, you can get some real good stuff for not a lot of money. Good. Right, let's get this cassette off. Apologies, the workshop is a bit of a tip at the moment. I've just been so busy catching up from my holiday. We're getting the Unior cassette tools. This looks like a 1228 or 1230. See what we've got that will do. 32, 1232, let's see what we've got. I've actually only got an 1128 in stock, so what I'll do is I'll refit this for now, set the gears up with this, and I'll just change it off camera when it arrives tomorrow. You will see me change cassettes before, so just put this back on temporarily. Oh, we need to sort this axle out first, don't we? Let's do that. Yeah, so there's some play in it. Well, that's totally loose there, that's why. So I'm holding the other end there, and that's totally loose, so one of these lock nuts has come undone. Let's just get this disc off first. No real reason other than so getting it contaminated with grease while we're working in here. Let's put that somewhere it doesn't get contaminated. Let's get this seal off. Seal, I say seal, it's optimistic there. Right, so this one here is totally loose, you can see that. Should be able to undo that by hand. So while we're in here, obviously we're going to put some grease in here. Crazy not to. So these are very, very cheap wheels. Ball bearings, not cartridge bearings. So just drop the axle out carefully and get a magnet. These picks are brilliant for this. And then just pick them all out. I had one viewer say, if you do that, you're magnetising the bearings and it attracts dirt to the grease. I mean, I can honestly say I've never heard that, but it's kind of a valid point, but everybody does it with a magnet, so I think in reality, the chances of that actually doing anything are pretty much non-existent. But it's a fair shout. And then we're going to just clean this up the best we can. This seal should pop out. So I use an old-fashioned metal tire lever for this. I find this really good for just popping these seals out. Nice and broad. And there you go. There's just a bit of a rubber seal. The metal core bends a little bit, but get it straightened back in. Alright, so that's in there. And this one again should just pop out like that. Let's just clean it up. Actually, race looks in really good condition. Perfect. Effectively, this race can write your wheel off because it's the only part that you can't get. You can obviously get cones, you can get axles, you can get a free hub for the other side potentially. But this part here, you can't get them. You can get some cups that you can press in and press out, but it's impossible to order the correct one for a no-name hub like this. So if you've got some in stock that might fit, then fair play to you, but you can't possibly order this as a spare part. It just doesn't exist. Fortunately, this is in really good condition. Again, that's in perfect condition, so happy days. You can see the chain's been off here several times. It hasn't broken any, but there's some pretty severe scuffing on them. Again, we're not going to go to the expense of rebuilding a kid's bike's wheel. Don't happen. You know, I do this day in, day out, and you have to draw the line at some point. I can quite happily go to the customer and say, yeah, it's a £400 repair bill for a £200 bike, but guess what? They'll just buy a new bike. So we keep it going for another year, and that's all we can do. Alright, that's actually really good. Alright, let's get some bearings in this. This is what you'd use your Mobile XHP 222 for. Absolutely perfect for this. So we're going to treat it as new ball bearings at least. 9 in each side. Actually, I think I'm going to leave this cassette on and see how it goes at the moment because the chain was not actually over its limit. It's just at the point to be changed. So we might get away with this old cassette and save the customer a little bit of money. So it's a steel cassette anyway, so I expect the wear to be fairly slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Put this seal back. Seal. I keep calling it a seal, but definitely not a seal. Very gently tap this in with you. Done. Right, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's always one that falls down the middle. Got it. Right, that's 9 in there. Good as new. Right, and this pathetic seal will go into there. Cool. On the drive side of the axle, make sure this cone and lock nut are super tight because once it's back together you can't get to this one, so check this one first. I'm going to put this in the ultrasonic while we're doing this, so clean up at least. Right, so I can go through there now without knocking the bearings out. Put this side back on. So just nip this up gently initially. Your cone spanner. It's a little bit tight on that one. If it's still a little bit on the loose side, you can just tighten these two 17s against each other until you're happy, and then finally nip up that cone a little bit more. A little bit more. Just go really easy. I mean, look how much I'm turning that. It's a tiny degree really. Right, that starts to get a tiny bit tight now, so by the time we tighten this cone up, that'll back that out. Right, so cone on there, tighten this. That was the one that came loose. That feels really nice now. Good. Right, put this excuse of a seal back on. Done. Quick release is missing its two springs, so we're just going to get some new springs for it. There we go. Again, AliExpress. Bag of quick release springs. About £1 I think they are, so as many as you want. There we go. Bit of grease on your quick release. That rhymes. Oh, amazing. Bit of grease on your quick release. Right. Well, the springs are the tapered bit, the pointy bit points towards the inside of the wheel. The amount of bags that come in where it's the wrong way around, where you got the fat bit on the inside, it's the wrong way. The pointy bit goes on the inside. Just waiting for that cassette to clean up a bit. Put this rotor back on. New tyre. Right, let's get this rotor back on there. Rotor, disc, whatever you want to call it. Gonna get some Loctite on these bolts. Okay, power these in, not literally. Let's cassette back on, bit of grease on there first. Still not convinced it does anything, but certainly don't do any harm. It's cleaned up quite nicely, but the problem with the cassettes is you can't tell really by just looking at it if it's got issues. You'll only find out when you put the chain on it and crank it down. It has a new cassette at some point. It's a SRAM cassette on a Shimano bike, so it has been changed at some point. Let's see how we go. I've got some rapid robs going on, rotation facing this way. If only all tyres are that easy to fit. Right, let's get this back in. Quick wheel service. No just clearance there. It's only a 2.1 tyre, so same as the size it came off. Right, front wheel. The only issue with the front wheel again is there's a spring missing. Bearings are good, rotor's fine, rim tape's on. So I'll stick a new tyre on there. I'll put a new tube in there so it matches front and back. It's a bit stupid having two different types of valves. So I won't bother filming that because you've seen it all before. I'll just carry on. Let's just get this new derailleur on. Just a little bit of grease on the mounting bolt. Front wheel also had a bit of a buckle, so I've sorted that out as well. It was worse than the back one to be fair, but it's straight enough now. Make sure that stops on its B-stop there and hold it while you tighten that. That's done. Right, we can set these limit screws now while there's no chain on there. So we need to set the high limit screw, which is this one, should sit underneath this sprocket. So it's just a case of unscrewing that, marked H, unscrew that until it lines up. Right there. Push this up to lowest. It's not quite making it, so we need a little bit more travel on that one. Unscrew. A bit more. Don't go too far because you don't want it in the spokes. Right, that'll be fine. Good. There is a B tension on there, but we can't do much with that yet until we get a chain on, so that's set. I'm just going to throw a chain on here now. Just a Sunray 6 and 7, you can use it on 8 as well. Cheap chains, good quality though. So you're going to get one good tool. I'd recommend a good chain tool. If you're doing a lot of this, obviously if you're only doing one, then a cheap basic one will do you fine, but if you're doing a lot of bikes, get a good one. Make sure you go down this derailleur properly. There's a little plate that sticks out. A lot of people run over that by accident, but it actually goes behind it. It will still work, but it'll be very noisy. This end clips in there really, and then just press the pin through. There's the older fashioned way of doing it. A lot of the cheaper chains still have these, rather than split links. It holds itself together while you push it in. Just back that out, drop it in there. Should go in nice and easily. Right at the end, just be careful. You're trying to get the end of this pin to the same level of flushing as the one next to it, basically. Kind of there. And then what you need to do is check you've not got a stiff link like that. That's no use, obviously. So on the chain tool, you've got a second set of plates here. You wind that back out. Find your stiff link. Pop that in the reverse. A bit fiddly with the wheel in, but you get it in there. And then you just flex in this handle until it hits it, and then give it sort of a quarter of a turn more. That's touching it now. And just flex that a quarter of a turn. And stiff link's gone. So So it's already looking a lot healthier than what it did, so we've got a derailleur that actually works. Some new tyres, straight wheels, new chain. Now it's time to cable up and get the gears and brakes set up. So this is the sort of job where you might consider using galvanised cables for basically a kid's bike. It's going to get thrashed, but it's only probably another £1 extra. I'm putting stainless steel ones in there. Good. Make sure it seats properly. Just actuate it. Good. Let's put these covers back on. There's a nice Wearer screwdriver. Look, it's got a grip on there. It's not magnetic, that's just gripping it because it's such a good fit. I do spend a lot of time looking for the right tools for the right job, and this is dedicated purely for these 2 screws on these shifters. That's the only thing I use it for. It's a really good fit. What size is it? It's a 350 PH1 times 50. Wearer part number 709345. Nice little screwdriver. Some of these Shimano shifters, this piece here is on like a plastic stalk, so just be careful when you put this back in because it's easy to get trapped in there and it just bends it and pretty much irreparable then. So just be careful. This one's okay, it's a different design, but some of them are a bit fiddly. Again, don't torque these down, it's literally just a plastic cover, doesn't do anything. So what I'll do now is I'll just replicate the outer housings that we cut off, cut some new ones, get them threaded through. So there's 3 new housings all cut, new plastic ferrules on there, get these fitted. It's just a Shimano cable grease. I've done a video on greases, it's probably been out by the time this comes out. So I'll just stick my finger in there and run it down the cable. Literally just hold it in your hand and pull it through. Don't need much. If you put too much on it, just attracts a lot of dirt and grit. Generally speaking, on these stainless cables, you're not going to need it, but it's probably the last service this bike will ever get, so let's give it half a chance. So the longest one obviously goes from the shifter to the frame. No barrel adjuster on this, so we're relying on the one on the rear derailleur. So there's 2 more pieces. The longer one is the rear derailleur part, and this short part goes on the frame here. And the last one obviously to the derailleur itself. And then we can check the gears, well, check the rear gears at least. It'll be a 7-speed shift, and it's pretty difficult to get it wrong, to be fair. It'll shift, it's very tolerant of minor sort of wear and tear or inaccuracies, but obviously your hanger needs to be straight. A new chain's always going to help. Right, that's good. So gear lever is in its 7th gear, so just pull a bit of tension on this. Hook it behind its pinch bolt and tighten that up. So we have got a barrel adjuster on here, but we've only got the one, so careful. Like I say, when you do that, if you just do that, you end up basically tightening it in the wrong place. So before you tighten it fully, just hold the derailleur and push it this way. Don't go crazy yet, because what we've got to do first is seat these housings. We might need to readjust that. What we need to do now is operate this gear lever without actually pedalling, and you'll feel obviously a lot of resistance as the chain gets sort of wedged in there, and push it up. Basically, that's not going to make its last click, but I've got quite a lot of pressure on there. And don't worry, I've never broken one yet doing this. But all that's doing is basically, I did click, all that's doing is seating all these plastic ferrules and everything into the frame and onto its housings. So then you get a realistic tension at the back. So let's go back to the derailleur. So if we check that now on the frame, you'll see we've got a bit of slack now. So we just need to undo that pinch bolt and pull that through, and then we'll be there. So that's why you don't super crimp this down, because almost certainly you're going to have to reposition it as well. So just do that again, pull it fairly tight with your finger, we'll get that tension off that tube there and nip it down. You can go for a final tighten now, because we shouldn't need to move it again. Right, let's see if these work. I'm sure they will, positive they will. All right, let's go with that, 1 click. Well, I was trying to go to the next one, so we've probably got slightly too much tension there. Yeah, because that's on straight from there to there now, so we've got too much tension. So because we had this unscrewed 2 or 3 turns, we can screw that in to get rid of that problem. We'll start again, up 1. That top limit screw is a little bit tight, that's why it's not going there. When you press the lever, you can feel this tightening up basically, so we just need a little bit more slack on this limit screw here. Half a turn really. And that should go up there, no problem there. Right, that's fine. Good. That's why it's important to have this sort of set, not halfway, but you need to give yourself a couple of turns on there, because if we had too much cable tension when we pulled it through and this is already in, we'd have to adjust this again, and potentially we've got a bit of a squash cable here, so it just starts to get a bit messy. So give yourself some adjustment both ways when you're putting a new cable in. Alright, that's fine. Let's trim this cable, leave about 30-40 millimeters. Always put an end cap on, because it'll just fray within seconds otherwise. So I'm just going to put a new cable on this front one. Again, I'll just cut new housings, match it all up and hook it up here, and then we'll get this set up. This cable run, what I'm going to do first is put this onto the largest sprocket at the back and make sure this gap here is sort of reasonable, which it is. You're looking for about 0.5 millimetre gap there, so that should be fine there. So we'll just connect this cable. So on this cable here, I've already threaded it through the frame. It just clamps behind this here. What I tend to find is easiest is there's a hole in the frame here, obviously. Just drop the cable down there, clamp it behind where it's supposed to be, and then you can put some real good tension pulling that cable directly through that hole, because you want quite a bit of tension on the front derailleur. And again, we're going to need to seat these as well. So we've only got one not particularly good barrel adjuster on the gear lever, so let's get it fairly tight before it starts. See how that goes. So I'm just going to seat this cable the best I can. And all I'm doing there is, again, is flexing the gear lever. You can see that wedging against there, and it's just tensioning these pieces here and back down. So we've got a bit of slack in this cable. Let's see if it will shift. So what you need to do with this is click it forward one gear on the gear lever without pedalling, like that, and then pedal. And if it goes up to this middle ring, we're sweet. You see how it's struggling. Well, it went up there eventually, but it could do with a fraction more cable tension. What you tend to find normally is it doesn't go up there, so you just need to keep applying cable tension until it does then go up there, and then just repeat that, make sure it's happy with it. So I'm just going to give it sort of one turn just to make sure that was good. Right, back down, up one click, and that's shifting lovely up there. We'll go down the middle of the cassette, because we should never be in big. And then we'll go for this top ring here. Perfect, down there. Good. That was me, I slipped. Good, happy with that. Got no brake cables yet, so I can't stop it. Just going to trim this cable. Again, end cap, especially on this one, because it just gets flicked into the crank or the chain ring, so make sure that's on. Right, what I should have done, man, well, yeah, wheels out, just get some lube on this front mech, so I'll just get some in there now. I'm just going to put a cloth down here so I don't cover absolutely everything. I should have done this when the wheel was out, sorry, and before I cleaned it. I got carried away. Just get some lube in, especially this mechanism down here. You can see that bit, yeah. And on the pivots as well, because these do tend to seize on a pretty regular basis. They're only pretty cheap steel components. Right, that should be fine. Just these pivots, if you can get into the pivots and this mechanism down here where most of the action happens, then that's fine. Quick wipe down. It's in pretty good condition, this. I think it was worth spending the money on it. I do like Treks. Big fan of them. We're going to move on to the brakes now. So while there's no cable, we can set this rear brake. So there's a adjuster in here. We want to set this inner pad until it's just touching this disc. Basically, just back it off a fraction, and then we'll set this side with a cable. So this screw in here, it's 5mm on this one, but they're all different. Quite often these are seized as well. Basically, all this is doing is you screw that in, and it pushes the pad, physically pushes the pad towards the disc itself. So it's a pretty crude mechanism again. Cable operated disc brakes and the whole are pretty crude. So I've given it a tiny turn there, you saw that. Now we'll just spin that wheel. Just ever so slightly skimming this warp disc. We're okay with that. Alright, let's set the cable. So I'm just going to cut a new housing for this. We'll probably get away with this one, to be fair, there's no real corrosion on it, but while we're in here, for the sake of a couple of quid, we're going to put a new housing on there. Cut a new housing. If you've got a grinder, just finish the end off and it gets it nice and flat. So you do want a really good finish on this, you don't want sharp bits still poking out, so just flatten it off on the grinder if you've got one. And yeah, make sure you put an end cap on there as well. When you get these steel end caps, if you just get a pair of side cutters and just very gently just nip it like that, it just stops it falling off. There is a tool, I'm still looking to find the original tool that puts 2 rings on here. I'll show you a picture of it now. So if anybody knows where you can actually purchase that tool from that gives a factory OEM finish, I'm not interested in any other finish, I want this double banded finish. If anybody knows what that tool's called or where you can buy one, please let me know, because I really want one. We just need to run this cable now inside the frame. If you do what I've just done and forgot to run this inside the seat stay, then you can just undo this side of the caliper and flip it through the wheel. Let's do that. If you undo these 2 side ones, you're not making any adjustment to the brake, so it's not a problem. Yeah, it always needs to go inside of the seat stay. I got interrupted by a customer, that's my excuse. Take them out, flip that through there, and just drop it back in. You can see there's some Loctite in there, so I'll just put a drop back in there. So just run them back through the bracket. Not in, is it? I've got a tripod in the way, so I can't see. Yeah, there you go. I'm taking these side ones off. It doesn't make any difference to the adjustments you just made on the brake, so not a problem. Right, now we can clip this to the frame where it came out of. There's one clip there, and 2 under the top. So I'm just going to use these plastic clips because they're in pretty good condition and they're actually holding. Quite often they either fell off or snapped, but so a cable tie is totally fine as well. And there's 2 more on the top tube. A bit tricky when these cables are in the way, but there you go, it's fine. Right, there you go. A bit fiddly, that's why cable ties is much easier. So it's just this front brake cable now, and then I think we're done. So we'll just run this through again, another Shimano stainless one. Line up your slots, drop it through, screw that in. Again, just a double cable grease. I did put some on the back, sorry I didn't show you. This cable should always go through the inside of the fork. Don't leave it flapping around at the outside here, because if you catch anything, you got major issues. But if you catch out, you're putting your brake on and you're going over the handlebars, so it threads through the inside of the fork, and it should basically just going to cable tie it to this here. There's no bracket specifically on this bike, unfortunately. Again, I'm just going to set these pads from the correct distance. You can see down there that one looks pretty far out. I'll set these pads again before putting the cable on this one. So we're just pushing it over basically, so this inside pad will be pretty much touching there. Not rubbing, so we're good. That's as far over as that will go. You can feel it on the stops. Not rubbing, so we'll set this inside one now. There's a massive gap there. It's almost maxed out. Good. And again, we could just run this cable through here now. I've looked at the pads, they're okay. What we tend to find on cable operated disc brakes is the pads last almost the lifetime of the bike. I can't remember how many I've ever changed, but I can count it on one hand compared to hydraulics. So again, I'm just going to set a little bit of preload on this one here. I don't think that's the right terminology for it, but I know what I mean. Right, nip that up. For cable operated disc brake, it feels okay. Right, we've got a tiny bit of rub on this inside pad, so we just need to back this out a bit. Doesn't look like I'm doing anything there, but what I'm doing basically is loosening this bolt and then I'm flexing it in between my finger and thumb. You won't be able to see it, but I've moved that sort of 1/10 of a millimetre, that's all it needs. Again, just this. Good. All we're going to do now is just lubricate this chain. I'll say it's unlikely to get much more maintenance, but plenty more abuse, so I'm going to go for a wet lube on here. It tends to last a bit longer. And, you know, kids, they could be out in all sorts. It's getting a wet lube. 1 drop per link. So that's all done. So I'm going to go for a quick test ride, make sure this chain's not jumping on this cassette, but I think, to be honest, it'll be okay. If need be, I'll change it over tomorrow. But apart from that, we're all good. So it looked like a complete wreck when it came in, but that's probably an hour's work if I wasn't constantly moving the tripod, etc. And you can smash through these things very quickly. It's like I say, it's bread and butter stuff. We do this day in, day out. Got all the parts in stock. You can power through these in no time at all once you've got all the kit. So I hope you enjoyed that. It gives you a bit of a taste of the day-to-day sort of bikes, really, rather than all the exotica stuff. But saying that, I've got a nice SL7 full Dura Ace Di2 coming in next week, so we'll make up for it on that one. Thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. People keep asking me for before and after pictures, so I did take some before pictures on this one. So I'll take some afters now and stick them up after this. So stick around for another minute if you want to see those. See you later.